The book of Asher, continuing on with chapters 50 through 55. Chapter 50 goes over Joseph goes to help the Ishmaelites against their enemies. Joseph stores up food throughout Egypt. And chapter 51 goes over Joseph sends his 10 oldest sons to Egypt for food and tell them not to enter in at the gate but to go to separately. And chapter 52 goes over Jacob's sorrow at the absence of Simeon, refuses to let Benjamin go, but when he and his household becomes pinched with hunger, Judah pleads for Benjamin. Chapter 53 goes over Jacob's sons again go to Egypt for bread. Benjamin is present before Joseph. And chapter 54 goes over Judah breaks through the door to get to Joseph and Benjamin. He recounts the many mighty deeds of his brethren and threatens to destroy all of Egypt if Benjamin not be released. And 55 goes over Mighty God Ahiah commands Jacob to go down to Egypt where he will make him a great nation. So let's continue on with chapter 50. Chapter 50. At that time the children of Tarshish came against the sons of Ishmael and made war with them, and the children of Tarshish spoiled the Ishmaelites for a long time. And the children of Ishmael were small in number in those days, and they could not prevail over the children of Tarshish, and they were sorely oppressed. And an old man of the Ishmaelites sent a record to the king of Egypt, saying, Send, I pray thee, unto thy servants officers and hosts to help us to fight against the children of Tarshish, for we have been consuming away for a long time. And Pharaoh sent Joseph with the mighty men and hosts which were with him, and also his mighty men from the king's house. And they went to the land of Havilah to the children of Ishmael to assist them against the children of Tarshish. And the children of Ishmael fought with the children of Tarshish, and Joseph smote the Tarshishites, and he subdued all their land, and the children of Ishmael dwell therein unto this day. And when the land of Tarshish were subdued, all the Tarshishites ran away and came on the border of their brethren and children of Javan. And Joseph with all his mighty men and hosts returned to Egypt, not one man of them missing. And at the revolution of the year, in the 2nd year of Joseph's reigning over Egypt, Mighty God Ahiah gave great plenty throughout the land for 7 years, as Joseph has spoken. For Mighty God Ahiah blessed all the produce of the earth in those days for 7 years, and they ate and were greatly satisfied. And Joseph at that time had officers under him, and they collected all the food of the good years, and heaped corn year by year, and they placed it in the treasuries of Joseph. And at any time when they gathered the food, Joseph commanded that they should bring the corn in the ears, and also bring with it some of the soil of the field, that it should not spoil. And Joseph did according to this year by year, and he heaped up corn like the sand of the sea for abundance, for his stores were immense and could not be numbered for abundance. And also all the inhabitants of Egypt gathered all sorts of food in their stores in great abundance during the 7 good years, but they did not do unto it as Joseph did. And all the food which Joseph and the Egyptian had gathered during the 7 years of plenty was secured for the land in stores for the 7 years of famine, for the support of the whole land. And the inhabitants of Egypt filled each man his store in his concealed place with corn to be for support during the famine. And Joseph placed all the food that he had gathered in all the cities of Egypt, and he closed all the stores and placed sentinels over them. And Joseph's wife Osaneth, the daughter of Potiphar, bare him 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and Joseph was 34 years old when he begot them. And the lads grew up, and they went in his ways and in his instructions. They did not deviate from the way which their father taught them, either to the right or left. And Mighty God Ahiah was with the lads, and they grew up and had understanding and skill in all wisdom and in all the affairs of government. And all the king's officers and his great men of the inhabitants of Egypt exalted the lads, and they were brought up amongst the king's children. And the 7 years of plenty that were throughout the land were at an end, and the 7 years of famine came after them, as Joseph had spoken, and the famine was throughout the land. And all the people of Egypt saw that the famine had commenced in the land of Egypt, and all the people of Egypt opened their stores of corn, for the famine prevailed over them. And they found all the food that was in their stores full of vermin and not fit to eat. And the famine prevailed throughout the land, and all the inhabitants of Egypt came and cried before Pharaoh, for the famine was heavy upon them. And they said unto Pharaoh, Give food unto thy servants, and wherefore shall we die through hunger before thy eyes, even we and our little ones? And Pharaoh answered them, saying, And wherefore do you cry unto me? Did not Joseph command that the corn should be laid up during the 7 years of plenty for the years of famine? And wherefore did you not hearken to his voice? And the people of Egypt answered the king, saying, As thy soul liveth, O Lord, thy servant have done all that Joseph ordered. For thy servants also gathered in all the produce of their fields during the 7 years of plenty, and laid it in the stores unto this day. And when the famine prevailed over thy servants, we opened our stores, and behold, all the produce was filled with vermin, and was not fit for food. And when the king heard all that had befallen the inhabitants of Egypt, the king was greatly afraid on account of the famine, and he was much terrified. And the king answered the people of Egypt, saying, Since all this has happened unto you, go unto Joseph, do whatever he shall say unto you, transgress not his commands. And all the people of Egypt went forth and came unto Joseph, and said unto him, Give unto us food, and wherefore shall we die before thee through hunger? For we gathered in our produce during the 7 years, as thou didst command, and we put it in store, and thus has it befallen us. And when Joseph heard all the words of the people of Egypt, and what had befallen them, Joseph opened all his stores of the produce, and he sold it unto the people of Egypt. And the famine prevailed throughout the land, and the famine was in all countries, but in the land of Egypt was produced for sale. And all the inhabitants of Egypt came unto Joseph to buy corn, for the famine prevailed over them, and all their corn was spoiled. And Joseph daily sold it to all the people of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, and the Philistines, and those beyond the Jordan, and the children of the east, and all the cities of the land far and nigh, heard that there was corn in Egypt, and they all came to Egypt to buy corn, for the famine prevailed over them. And Joseph opened the stores of corn, and placed officers over them, and they daily stood and sold to all that came. And Joseph knew that his brethren also would come to Egypt to buy corn, for the famine prevailed throughout the earth. And Joseph commanded all his people that they should cause it to be proclaimed throughout the land of Egypt, saying, It is the pleasure of the king, of his second, and of their great men, that any person who wishes to buy corn in Egypt shall not send his servants to Egypt to purchase, but his sons, and also any Egyptian or Canaanite who shall come from any of the stores from buying corn in Egypt, and shall go and sell it throughout the land, he shall die, for no one shall buy but for the support of his household. And any man leading 2 or 3 beasts shall die, for a man shall only lead his own beast. And Joseph placed sentinels at the gate of Egypt, and commanded them, saying, Any person who may come to buy corn, suffer him not to enter until his name and the name of his father and the name of his father's father be written down, and whatever is written by day, send their names unto me in the evening, that I may know their names. And Joseph placed officers throughout the land of Egypt, and he commanded them to do all these things. And Joseph did all these things, and made these statutes, in order that he might know when his brethren should come to Egypt to buy corn. And Joseph's people caused it daily to be proclaimed in Egypt, according to these words and statutes which Joseph had commanded. And all the inhabitants of the east and west country, and all the earth, heard of the statutes and regulations which Joseph had enacted in Egypt. And the inhabitants of the extreme parts of the earth came, and they bought corn in Egypt day after day, and then went away. And all the officers of Egypt did as Joseph had commanded, and all that came to Egypt to buy corn, the gatekeepers would write their names and their fathers' names, and daily bring them in the evening before Joseph. Chapter 51. And Jacob afterward heard that there was corn in Egypt, and he called unto his sons to go to Egypt to buy corn, for upon them also did the famine prevail. And he called unto his sons, saying, Behold, I hear that there is corn in Egypt, and all the people of the earth go there to purchase. Now therefore, why will you show yourselves satisfied before the whole earth? Go you also down to Egypt, and buy us a little corn amongst those that come there, that we may not die. And the sons of Jacob hearkened to the voice of their father, and they rose up to go down to Egypt in order to buy corn amongst the rest that came there. And Jacob their father commanded them, saying, When you come into the city, do not enter together in one gate, on account of the inhabitants of the land. And the sons of Jacob went forth, and they went to Egypt, and the sons of Jacob did all as their father had commanded them. And Jacob did not send Benjamin, for he said, lest an accident might befall him on the road like his brother. And 10 of Jacob's sons went forth. And whilst the sons of Jacob were going on the road, they repented of what they had done to Joseph, and they spoke to each other, saying, We know that our brother Joseph went down to Egypt, and now we will seek him where we go, and if we find him, we will take him from his masters for a ransom, and if not, by force, and we will die for him. And the sons of Jacob agreed to this thing, and strengthened themselves on account of Joseph, to deliver him from the hand of his master. And the sons of Jacob went to Egypt. And when they came near to Egypt, they separated from each other, and they came through 10 gates of Egypt. And the gatekeepers wrote their names on that day, and brought them to Joseph in the evening. And Joseph read the names from the hand of the gatekeepers of the city, and found that his brethren had entered at the 10 gates of the city. And Joseph at that time commanded that it should be proclaimed throughout the land of Egypt, saying, Go forth, all you store guards, close all the corn stores, and let only one remain open, that those who come may purchase from it. And all the officers of Joseph did so at that time, and they closed all the stores and left only one open. And Joseph gave the written names of his brethren to him that was set over the open store. And he said unto him, Whosoever shall come to thee to buy corn, ask his name, and when men of these names shall come before thee, seize them and send them. And they did so. And when the sons of Jacob came into the city, they joined together in the city to seek Joseph before they bought themselves corn. And they went to the wall of the harlots, and they saw Joseph in the walls of the harlots for 3 days, for they thought that Joseph would come in the walls of the harlots, for Joseph was very comely and well favored. And the sons of Jacob sought Joseph for 3 days, and they could not find him. And the man who was set over the open store sought for those names which Joseph had given him, and he did not find them. And he sent to Joseph, saying, These 3 days have passed, and those men whose names thou didst give unto me have not come. And Joseph sent servants to seek the men in all Egypt, and to bring them before Joseph. And Joseph's servants went and came into Egypt, and could not find them, and went to Goshen, and they were not there, and then went to the city of Ramesses, and could not find them. And Joseph continued to send 16 servants to seek his brothers, and they went and spread themselves in the 4 corners of the city. And 4 of the servants went into the house of the harlots, and they found the 10 men there seeking their brother. And those 4 men took them and brought them before him, and they bowed down to him to the ground. And Joseph was sitting upon his throne in his temple, clothed with princely garments, and upon his head was a large crown of gold. And all the mighty men were sitting around him. And the sons of Jacob saw Joseph, and his figure and comeliness and dignity of countenance seemed wonderful in their eyes. And they again bowed down to him to the ground. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but they knew him not, for Joseph was very great in their eyes, therefore they knew him not. And Joseph spoke to them, saying, From whence come you? And they all answered and said, Thy servants have come from the land of Canaan to buy corn, for the famine prevailed throughout the earth, and thy servants heard that there was corn in Egypt, so they have come amongst the order corners to buy corn for their support. And Joseph answered them, saying, If you have come to purchase, as you say, why do you come through 10 gates of the city? It can only be that you have come to spy through the land. And they all together answered Joseph and said, Not so, my lord. We are right thy servants, or not spies, but we have come to buy corn, for thy servants are all brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And our father command us, saying, When you come to the city, do not enter together at one gate, on account of the inhabitants of the land. And Joseph again answered them and said, This that is the thing which I spoke unto you. You have come to spy through the land. Therefore you all came through 10 gates of the city. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. Surely every one that cometh to buy corn goeth his way, and you are already 3 days in the land. And what do you do in the walls of harlots, in which you have been for these 3 days? Surely spies do like unto these things. And they said unto Joseph, Far be it from our Lord to speak thus, for we are 12 brothers, the sons of our father Jacob, in the land of Canaan, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham the Hebrew. And behold, the youngest is with our father this day in the land of Canaan. And one is not, for he was lost for us, and we thought perhaps he might be in this land. So we are seeking him throughout the land, and have come even to the houses of harlots to seek him there. And Joseph said unto them, And have you then sought him throughout the earth, that there only remained Egypt for you to seek him in? And what also should your brother do in the houses of harlots, although he were in Egypt? Have you not said that you are from the sons of Isaac, the son of Abraham? And what shall the sons of Jacob do then in the house of harlots? And they said unto him, Because we heard that Ishmaelites stole him from us, and it was told unto us that they sold him in Egypt. And thy servant our brother is very comely and well favored, so we thought he would surely be in the house of harlots. Therefore thy servants went there to seek him and give ransom for him. And Joseph still answered them, saying, Surely you speak falsely and utter lies, to say of yourselves that you are the sons of Abraham. As Pharaoh liveth, you are spies. Therefore have you come to the houses of harlots, that you should not be known. And Joseph said unto them, And now if you find him, and his master require of you a great price, will you give it for him? And they said, It shall be given. And he said unto them, And if his master will not consent to part with him for a great price, what will you do unto him on his account? And they answered him, saying, If he will not give him unto us, we will slay him, and take our brother, and go away. And Joseph said unto them, That is the thing which I have spoken to you. You are spies, for you are come to slay the inhabitants of the land. For we heard that 2 of your brethren smote all the inhabitants of Shechem in the land of Canaan on account of your sister, and you now come to do like in Egypt on account of your brother. Only hereby shall I know that you are true men, if you will send home one from among you to fetch your youngest brother from your father, and to bring him here unto me, and by doing this thing I will know that you are right. And Joseph called to 70 of his mighty men, and he said unto them, Take these men and bring them into the ward. And the mighty men took the 10 men that laid hold of them, and put them into the ward, and they were in the ward 3 days. And on the 3rd day Joseph had them brought out of the ward, and he said unto them, Do this for yourselves, if you be true men, so that you may live. One of your brethren shall be confined in the ward, whilst you go and take home the corn for your household to the land of Canaan, and fetch your youngest brother, and bring him here unto me, that I may know that you are true men when you do this thing. And Joseph went out from them, and came into the chamber, and wept a great weeping, for his pity was excited for them. And he washed his face, and returned to them again. And he took Simeon from them, and ordered him to be bound. But Simeon was not willing to be done so, for he was a very powerful man, and they could not bind him. And Joseph called unto his mighty men, and 70 valiant men came before him with drawn swords in their hand, and the sons of Jacob were terrified at them. And Joseph said unto them, Seize this man and confine him in prison until his brethren come to him. And Joseph's valiant men hastened, and they all laid hold of Simeon to bind him. And Simeon gave a loud and terrible shriek, and they cried, and the cry was heard at a distance. And all the valiant men of Joseph were terrified at the sound of the shriek, that they fell upon their faces, and they were greatly afraid and fled. And all the men that were with Joseph fled, for they were greatly afraid of their lives. And only Joseph and Manasseh his son remained there. And Manasseh the son of Joseph saw the strength of Simeon, and he was exceedingly wroth. And Manasseh the son of Joseph rose up to Simeon, and Manasseh smote Simeon a heavy blow with his fist against the back of his neck, and Simeon was still of his rage. And Manasseh laid hold of Simeon, and he seized him violently, and he bound him, and brought him into the house of confinement. And all the sons of Jacob were astonished at the act of the youth. And Simeon said unto his brethren, None of you must say that this is the smiting of an Egyptian, but it is the smiting of the house of my father. And after this Joseph ordered him to be called, who was set over the storehouse, to fill their sacks with corn as much as they could carry, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the road. And thus did he unto them. And Joseph commanded them, saying, Take heed lest you transgress my orders to bring your brother as I have told you. And it shall be when you bring your brother hither unto me, then will I know that you are true men, and you shall traffic in the land, and I will restore unto you your brother, and you shall return in peace to your father. And they all answered and said, According as our Lord speaketh, so will we do. And they bowed down to him to the ground. And every man lifted up his corn unto his ass, and they went out to go to the land of Canaan to their father. And they came to the inn, and Levi spread his sack to give provender to his ass, when he saw, and behold, his money in full weight was still in his sack. And the man was greatly afraid, and he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And the men were greatly afraid, and they said, What is this that God had done unto us? And they all said, And where is thy Lord's kindness with our father, with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And mighty God Ahijah has this day delivered us into the hands of the king of Egypt, to contrive against us. And Judah said unto them, Surely we are guilty sinners before mighty God Ahijah, our El Elohi, in having sold our brother our own flesh. And wherefore do you say, Where is mighty God Ahijah's kindness with our father? And Reuben said unto them, Say I not unto you, Do not sin against the lad, and you would not listen to me. Now mighty God Ahijah required him from us, and now dare you say, Where is mighty God Ahijah's kindness with our fathers, whilst you have sinned unto mighty God Ahijah? And they tarried overnight in that place, and they rose up early in the morning, and ladded their asses with their corn, and they led them, and went on, and came to their father's house in the land of Canaan. And Jacob and his household went out to meet his sons. And Jacob saw, and behold, their brother Simeon was not with him. And Jacob said unto his sons, Where is your brother Simeon, whom I do not see? And his sons told him all that had befallen them in Egypt. Chapter 52. And they entered their house, and every man opened his sack, and they saw, and behold, every man's bundle of money was there, at which they and their father were greatly terrified. And Jacob said unto them, What is this that you have done unto me? I sent your brother Joseph to inquire after your welfare, and you said unto me, A wild beast did devour him. And Simeon went with you to buy food, and you said the king of Egypt had confined him in prison, and you wished to take Benjamin to cause his death also, and bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave on account of Benjamin and his brother Joseph? Now therefore my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone, and mischief may befall him by the way in which you go, as it befell his brother. And Reuben said unto his father, Thou shalt slay my 2 sons if I do not bring thy son and place him before thee. And Jacob said unto his sons, Abide you here, and do not go down to Egypt, for my son shall not go down with you to Egypt, nor die like his brother. And Judah said unto them, Refrain you from him until the corn is finished. And he will then say, Take down your brother, while he will find his own life and the life of his household in danger from the famine. And in those days the famine was sore throughout the land, and all the people of the earth went and came to Egypt to buy food, for the famine prevailed greatly amongst them. And the sons of Jacob remained in Canaan 1 year and 2 months, until their corn was finished. And it came to pass, after their corn was finished, the whole household of Jacob was pinched with hunger, and all the infants of the sons of Jacob came together, and they approached Jacob, and they all surrounded him, and they said unto him, Give unto us bread, and wherefore shall we all perish through hunger in thy presence? Jacob heard the words of his sons' children, and he wept a great weeping, and his pity was roused for them. And Jacob called unto his sons, and they all came and sat before him. And Jacob said unto them, And have you not seen how your children have been weeping over me this day, saying, Give unto us bread, and there is none? Now therefore return and buy for us a little food. And Judah answered and said unto his father, If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy corn for thee. And if thou wilt not send him, then we will not go down. For surely the king of Egypt particularly enjoined us, saying, You shall not see my face unless your brother be with you. For the king of Egypt is a strong and mighty king. And behold, if we shall go to him without our brother, we shall all be put to death. Dost thou not know, and hast thou not heard, that this king is very powerful and wise, and there is none like unto him in all the earth? Behold, we have seen all the kings of the earth, and we have not seen one like that king, the king of Egypt. Surely amongst all the kings of the earth there is none greater than Abimelech, king of the Philistines. Yet the king of Egypt is greater and mightier than he, and Abimelech can only be compared to one of his officers. Father, thou hast not seen his palace and his throne, and all his servants standing before him. Thou hast not seen that king upon his throne in his pomp and royal appearance, dressed in his kingly robes, with a large golden crown upon his head. Thou hast not seen the honor and glory which mighty God Ahai has given unto him, for there is none not like unto him in all the earth. Father, thou hast not seen the wisdom, the understanding, and the knowledge which mighty God Ahai has given in his heart, nor heard his sweet voice when he spake unto us. We know not, Father, who made him acquainted with our names and all that befell us. Yet he asked also after thee, saying, Is your father still living, and is it well with him? Thou hast not seen the affairs of the government of Egypt regulated by him, without inquiring of Pharaoh his lord. Thou hast not seen the awe and fear which he impressed upon all the Egyptians. And also when we went from him, we threatened to do unto Egypt like unto the rest of the cities of the Amorites, and we were exceedingly wroth against all his words which he spoke concerning us as spies. And now when we shall again come before him, his terror will fall upon us all, and not one of us will be able to speak to him either a little or a great thing. Now therefore, Father, send, we pray thee, the lad with us, and we will go down and buy thee food for our support, and not die through hunger. And Jacob said, Why have you dealt so ill with me, to tell the king you had a brother? What is this thing that you have done unto me? And Judah said unto Jacob his father, Give the lad into my care, and we will rise up and go down to Egypt and buy corn, and then return. And it shall be when we return, if the lad be not with us, then let me bear thy blame forever. Hast thou seen all our infants weeping over thee through hunger, and there is no power in thy hand to satisfy them? Now let thy pity be roused for them, and send our brothers with us, and we will go. For how will mighty God, our highest kindness to our ancestors be manifested to thee, when thou sayest that the king of Egypt will take away thy son. As mighty God, our higher liveth, I will not leave him until I bring him and place him before thee, but pray for us unto mighty God higher, that he may deal kindly with us, to cause us to be received favorably and kindly before the king of Egypt and his men. For had we not delayed, surely now we have returned a second time with thy son. And Jacob said unto his sons, I trust in mighty God higher, our El Elohi, that he may deliver you and give you favor in the sight of the king of Egypt and in the sight of all his men. Now therefore rise up and go to the man, and take for him in your hands a present from what can be obtained in the land, and bring it before him, and may mighty God higher, our El Elohi, God Almighty, give you mercy before him, that he may send Benjamin and Simeon your brethren with you. And all the men rose up, and they took their brother Benjamin, and they took in their hands a large present of the best of the land, and they also took a double portion of silver. And Jacob strictly commanded his sons concerning Benjamin, saying, Take heed of him in the way in which you are going, and do not separate yourselves from him in the road, neither in Egypt. And Jacob rose up from his sons, and spread forth his hands, and he prayed unto mighty God Ahijah on account of his sons, saying, O mighty God Ahijah, my El Elohi of heaven and earth, remember thy covenant with our father Abraham, remember it with my father Isaac, and deal kindly with my sons, and deliver them not into the hand of the king of Egypt. Do it, I pray thee, O mighty God Ahijah, my El Elohi, for the sake of thy mercies, and redeem all my children, and rescue them from Egyptian power, and send them their two brothers. And all the wives of the sons of Jacob and their children lifted up their eyes to heaven, and they all wept before mighty God Ahijah, and cried unto him to deliver their fathers from the hand of the king of Egypt. And Jacob wrote a record to the king of Egypt, and gave it into the hand of Judah and into the hand of his sons for the king of Egypt, saying, From thy servant Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, the Hebrew, the prince of mighty God Ahijah, to the powerful and wise king, the revealer of secrets, king of Egypt, greeting. Be it known to my lord, the king of Egypt, that famine was sore upon us in the land of Canaan, and I sent my sons to thee to buy us a little food from thee for our support. For my sons surrounded me, and I, being very old, cannot see with my eyes, for my eyes have become very heavy through age, as well as with daily weeping for my son, for Joseph, who was lost from before me. And I commanded my sons that they should not enter the gates of the city when they came into Egypt, on account of the inhabitants of the land. And I also commanded them to go about Egypt to seek for my son Joseph, perhaps they might find him there. And they did so, and thou didst consider them as spies of the land. Have we not heard concerning thee that thou didst interpret Pharaoh's dream, and didst speak truly unto him? How then dost thou not know in thy wisdom whether my sons are spies or not? Now therefore, my lord and king, behold, I have sent my son before thee, as thou didst speak unto my sons. I beseech thee to put thy eyes upon him until he is returned to me in peace with his brethren. For thou dost not know, or hast thou not heard that which our mighty God Ahijah did unto Pharaoh, when he took my mother Sarah, and what he did unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, on the account of her, and also what our father Abraham did unto the 9 kings of Elam, how he smote them all with a few men there were with them. And also what my 2 sons Simeon and Levi did unto the 8 cities of the Amorites, how they destroyed them on account of their sister Dinah. And also on account of their brother Benjamin, they consoled themselves for the loss of his brother Joseph. What will they then do for him when they see the hand of any people prevailing over them for his sake? Dost thou not know, O king of Egypt, that the power of mighty God Ahijah is with us, and that also mighty God Ahijah ever heard our prayers, and forsaken us not all the days? And when my sons told me of thy dealing with them, I called not unto mighty God Ahijah on account of thee, for then thou wouldst have perished with them thy men before my son Benjamin came before thee. But I thought that as Simeon my son was in thy house, perhaps thou mightest deal kindly with him. Therefore I did not this thing unto thee. Now therefore, behold, Benjamin my son cometh unto thee with my sons. Take heed of him, and put thy eyes upon him, and then will mighty God Ahijah place his eyes over thee and throughout thy kingdom. Now I have told thee all that is in my heart, and behold, my sons are coming to thee with their brother. Examine the face of the whole earth for their sake, and send them back in peace with their brethren. And Jacob gave the record to his sons into the care of Judah, to give it unto the king of Egypt. Chapter 53. And the sons of Jacob rose up and took Benjamin and the whole of the presents, and they went and came to Egypt, and they stood before Joseph. And Joseph beheld his brother Benjamin with them, and he saluted them, and these men came to Joseph's house. And Joseph commanded the superintendent of his house to give to his brethren to eat, and he did so unto them. And at noontime Joseph sent for the men to come before him with Benjamin, and the men told the superintendent of Joseph's house concerning the silver that was returned in their sacks. And he said unto them, It will be well with you, fear not. And he brought their brethren Simeon unto them. And Simeon said unto his brethren, Thy lord of the Egyptians has acted very kindly unto me. He did not keep me bound, as you saw with your eyes. For when you went out from the city, he let me free, and dealt kindly with me in his house. And Judah took Benjamin by the hand, and they came before Joseph, and they bowed down to him to the ground. And the men gave the present unto Joseph, and they all sat before him. And Joseph said unto them, Is it well with you? Is it well with your children? Is it well with your aged father? And they said, It is well. And Judah took the record which Jacob had sent, and gave it into the hand of Joseph. And Joseph read the letter, and knew his father writing, and he wished to weep, and he went into an inner room, and he wept a great weeping, and he went out. And he lifted up his eyes, and beheld his brother Benjamin, and he said, Is this your brother of whom you spoke unto me? And Benjamin approached Joseph, and Joseph placed his hand upon his head, and he said unto him, May God be gracious unto thee, my son. And when Joseph saw his brother, the son of his mother, and he again wished to weep, and he entered the chamber, and he wept there, and he washed his face, and went out, and refrained from weeping, and he said, Prepare food. And Joseph had a cup from which he drank, and it was of silver beautifully inlaid with onyx stones and bdellium. And Joseph struck the cup in the sight of his brethren whilst they were sitting to eat with him. And Joseph said unto the men, I know by this cup that Reuben the firstborn, Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun are children from one mother. Seat yourselves to eat according to your births. And he also placed the others according to their births. And he said, I know that your youngest brother has no brother, and I like him have no brother. He shall therefore sit down to eat with me. And Benjamin went up before Joseph, and sat upon the throne. And the men beheld the acts of Joseph, and they were astonished at him. And the men ate and drank at that time with Joseph, and he then gave presents unto them. And Joseph gave one gift unto Benjamin, and Manasseh and Ephraim saw the acts of their father, and they also gave presents unto him. And Osnath gave him one present, and they were 5 presents in the hand of Benjamin. And Joseph brought them out wine to drink, and they would not drink. And they said, From the day on which Joseph was lost, we have not drunk wine nor eaten any delicacies. And Joseph swore unto them, and he pressed them hard, and they drank plentifully with him on that day. And Joseph afterward turned to his brother Benjamin to speak with him, and Benjamin was still sitting upon the throne before Joseph. And Joseph said unto him, Hast thou begotten any children? And he said, Thy servant has 10 sons, and these are their names: Bela, Becher, Ashbal, Gera, Naaman, Archi, Rosh, Muppim, Chuppim, and Ord. And I call their names after my brother whom I have not seen. And he ordered them to bring before him his map of the stars, whereby Joseph knew all the times. And Joseph said unto Benjamin, I have heard that the Hebrews are acquainted with all wisdom. Dost thou know anything of this? And Benjamin said, Thy servant is knowing also in all the wisdom which my father taught me. And Joseph said unto Benjamin, Look now at this instrument, and understand where thy brother Joseph is in Egypt, who you said went down to Egypt. And Benjamin beheld that instrument with the map of the stars of heaven, and he was wise and looked therein to know where his brother was. And Benjamin divided the whole land of Egypt into 4 divisions, and he found that he was sitting upon the throne before him was his brother Joseph. And Benjamin wondered greatly, and when Joseph saw that his brother Benjamin was so much astonished, he said unto Benjamin, What hast thou seen, and what art thou astonished? Why art thou astonished? And Benjamin said unto Joseph, I can see by this that Joseph my brother sitteth here with me upon the throne. And Joseph said unto him, I am Joseph thy brother. Reveal not this thing unto thy brethren. Behold, I will send thee with them when they go away, and I will command them to be brought back again into the city, and I will take thee away from them. And if they dare their lives and fight for thee, then shall I know that they have repented of what they did unto me, and I will make myself known to them. And if they forsake thee when I take thee, then shalt thou remain with me, and I will wrangle with them, and they shall go away, and I will not become known to them. And at that time Joseph commanded his officers to fill their sacks with food, and to put each man's money into his sack, and to put the cup in the sack of Benjamin, and to give them provision for the road, and they did so unto them. And on the next day the men rose up early in the morning, and they loaded their asses with their corn, and they went forth with Benjamin, and they went to the land of Canaan with their brother Benjamin. They had not gone far from Egypt when Joseph commanded him that was set over his house, saying, Rise, pursue these men before they get too far from Egypt, and say unto them, What have you stolen my master's cup? Why have you stolen my master's cup? And Joseph's officers rose up, and he reached them, and he spoke unto them all the words of Joseph. And when they heard this thing, they became exceedingly wroth, and they said, He with whom thy master's cup shall be found shall die, and we will also become slaves. And they hastened, and each man brought down his sack from his ass, and they looked in their bags, and the cup was found in Benjamin's bag. And they all tore their garments, and they returned to the city, and they smote Benjamin in the road continually, smiting him until they came into the city, and they stood before Joseph. And Judah's anger was kindled, and he said, This man has only brought me back to destroy Egypt this day. And the men came to Joseph's house, and they found Joseph sitting upon his throne, and all the mighty men standing at his right and left. And Joseph said unto them, What is this act that you have done, that you took away my silver cup and went away? But I know that you took my cup in order to know thereby in what part of the land your brother was. And Judah said, What shall we say to our Lord? What shall we speak, and how shall we justify ourselves? Mighty God Ahiah has this day found the iniquity of all thy servants, therefore has he done this thing to us this day. And Joseph rose up and caught hold of Benjamin, and took him from his brethren with violence. And he came to the house, and locked the door at them. And Joseph commanded him that was set over his house, that he should say unto them, Thus said the king, Go in peace to your father. Behold, I have taken the man in whose hand my cup was found. Chapter 54. And when Judah saw the dealings of Joseph with them, Judah approached him and broke open the door and came with his brethren before Joseph. And Judah said unto Joseph, Let it not seem grievous in thy sight of my lord. May thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word before thee. And Joseph said unto him, Speak. And Judah spoke before Joseph, and his brethren were there standing before them. And Judah said unto Joseph, Surely when we first came to our lord to buy food, thou didst consider us as spies of the land, and we brought Benjamin before thee, and thou still make sport of us this day. Now therefore let the king hear my words, and send, I pray thee, our brother, that he may go along with us to our father, lest that thy soul perish this day with all the souls of the inhabitants of Egypt. Dost thou not know what two of my brethren, Simeon and Levi, did unto the city of Shechem, and unto 7 cities of the Amorites on account of our sister Dinah, and also what they would do for the sake of their brother Benjamin? And I, with my strength, who am greater and mightier than both of them, come this day upon thee in thy land, if thou art unwilling to send our brother. Hast thou not heard what our mighty God Ahiah, who made choice of us, did unto Pharaoh on account of Sarah our mother, whom he took away from our father, that he smote him and his household with heavy plagues, that even unto this day the Egyptians related this wonder to each other? So will our God do unto thee on account of Benjamin, whom thou hast this day taken from his father, and on account of the evils which thou this day heapest over us in thy land. For mighty God Ahiah will remember his covenant with our father Abraham, and bring evil upon thee, because thou hast grieved the soul of our father this day. Now therefore hear my words that I have this day spoken unto thee, and send our brother, that he may go away, lest thou and the people of thy land die by the sword, for you cannot all prevail over me. And Joseph answered Judah, saying, Why hast thou opened wide thy mouth, and why dost thou boast over us, saying, Strength is with thee? As Pharaoh liveth, if I command all my valiant men to fight with you, surely thou and these thy brethren will sink in the mire. And Judah said unto Joseph, Surely it becometh thee and thy people to fear me, as mighty God Ahiah liveth. If I once draw my sword, I shall not sheathe it again until I shall this day have slain all Egypt. And I will commence with thee, and finish with Pharaoh thy master. And Joseph answered and said unto him, Surely strength belongeth not alone to thee. I am stronger and mightier than thou. Surely if thou drawest thy sword, I will put it to thy neck, and thy neck of all thy brethren. And Judah said unto him, Surely if I this day open my mouth against thee, I would swallow thee up, that thou be destroyed from off the earth, and perish this day from thy kingdom. And Joseph said, Surely if thou openest thy mouth, I have power and might to close thy mouth with a stone, until thou shalt not be able to utter a word. See how many stones are before us. Truly I can take a stone and force it into thy mouth, and break thy jaws. And Judah said, Mighty God Ahiah is witness between us, that we have not hither to desire to battle with thee. Only give us our brother, and we will go from thee. And Joseph answered and said, As Pharaoh liveth, if all the king of Canaan came together with you, you should not take him from my hand. Now therefore go your way to your father, and your brother shall be unto me for a slave, for he has robbed the king's house. And Judah said, What is it to thee, or to the character of the king? Surely the king sendeth forth from his house throughout the land silver and gold, either in gifts or expenses. And thou still talkest about thy cup, which thou didst place in our brother's bag, and sayest that he has stolen it from thee? Mighty God Ahiah forbid that our brother Benjamin or any of the seed of Abraham should do this thing, to steal from thee, or from anyone else, whether king, prince, or any man. Now therefore cease this accusation, lest the whole earth hear thy words, saying, For a little silver the king of Egypt wrangled with the men, and he accused them, and took their brother for a slave. And Joseph answered and said, Take unto you this cup, and go from me, and leave your brother for a slave, for it is the judgment of a thief to be a slave. And Judah said, Why art thou not ashamed of thy words to leave our brother and to take thy cup? Surely if thou givest us thy cup, or 1,000 times as much, we will not leave our brother for the silver which is found in the hand of any man, that we will not die over him. And Joseph answered, And why didst you forsake your brother and sell him for 20 pieces of silver unto this day? And why then will you not do the same to this your brother? And Judah said, Mighty God Ahai is witness between me and thee, that we desire not thy battles. Now therefore give us our brother, and we will go from thee without quarreling. And Joseph answered and said, If all the king of the land should assemble, they will not be able to take your brother from my hand. And Judah said, What shall we say unto our father when he seeth that our brother cometh not with us, and will grieve over him? And Joseph answered and said, This is the thing which you shall tell unto your father, saying, The rope has gone after the bucket. And Judah said, Surely thou art a king, and why speakest thou these things, giving a false judgment? Woe unto the king who is like unto thee. And Joseph answered and said, There is no false judgment in the word that I spoke on account of your brother Joseph. For all of you sold him to the Midianites for 20 pieces of silver, and you all denied it to your father, and said unto him, An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces. And Judah said, Behold, the fire of Shem burneth in my heart. Now I will burn all your land with fire. And Joseph answered and said, Surely thy sister-in-law Tamar, who killed your sons, extinguished the fire of Shechem. And Judah said, If I pluck out a single hair from my flesh, I will fill all Egypt with this blood. Excuse me, God, this is getting funny to me. Please forgive me. Verse 27. And Joseph answered and said, Such is your custom to do as you did to your brother whom you sold, and you dipped his coat in blood and brought it to your father, in order that he might say, An evil beast devoured him, and here is his blood. And when Judah heard this thing, he was exceedingly wroth, and his anger burned within him. And there was before him in that place a stone, the weight of which was about 400 shekels. And Judah's anger was kindled, and he took the stone in one hand, and cast it to the heavens, and caught it with his left hand. And he placed it afterwards under his leg, and he sat upon it with all his strength, and the stone was turned into dust from the force of Judah. And Joseph saw the act of Judah, and was very much afraid, but he commanded Manasseh his son. He also did with another stone like unto the act of Judah. And Judah said unto his brethren, Let not any of you say, This man is an Egyptian, but by his doing this thing he is of our father's family. And Joseph said, Not to you only in strength given, for we are also powerful men, and why will you boast over us all? And Judah said unto Joseph, Send, I pray thee, our brother, and ruin not thy country this day. And Joseph answered and said unto them, Go and tell your father, an evil beast has devoured him, as you said concerning your brother Joseph. And Judah spoke to his brother Naphtali, and he said unto him, Make haste, go now and number all the streets of Egypt, and come and tell me. And Simeon said unto him, Let not this thing be a trouble to thee. Now I will go to the mount, and take up one large stone from the mount, and level it at every one in Egypt, and kill all that are in it. And Joseph heard all these words that his brethren spoke before him, and they did not know that Joseph understood them, for they imagined that he knew not to speak Hebrew. And Joseph was greatly afraid at the words of his brethren, lest they should destroy Egypt. And he commanded his son Manasseh, saying, Go now, make haste, and gather unto me all the inhabitants of Egypt, and all thy valiant men together, and let them come to me now upon horseback, and on foot, and with all sorts of musical instruments. And Manasseh went, and he did so. And Naphtali went as Judah had commanded him, for Naphtali was light-footed as one of the swift stags, and he would go upon the ears of corn, and they would not break under him. Wow. And he went and numbered all the streets of Egypt, and found them to be 12. And he came hastily and told Judah. And Judah said unto his brethren, Hasten you, and put on every man his sword upon his loins, and we will come over Egypt, and smite them all, and let not a remnant remain. And Judah said, Behold, I will destroy 3 of the streets with my strength, and you shall each destroy 1 street. And when Judah was speaking this thing, behold, the inhabitants of Egypt and all the mighty men came toward them with all sorts of musical instruments and with loud shouting. And their number was 500 cavalry and 10,000 infantry and 400 men who could fight without sword or spear, only with their hands and strength. And all the mighty men came with great storming and shouting, and they all surrounded the sons of Jacob and terrified them, and the ground quaked at the sound of their shouting. And when the sons of Jacob saw these troops, they were greatly afraid of their lives, and Joseph did so in order to terrify the sons of Jacob to be tranquilized. And Judah, seeing some of his brethren terrified, said unto them, Why are you afraid, while the grace of mighty God is with us? And when Judah saw all the people of Egypt surrounding them at the command of Joseph to terrify them, only Joseph commanded them, saying, Do not touch any of them. Then Judah hastened and drew his sword and uttered a loud and bitter scream, and he smote with his sword, and he sprang upon the ground, and he still continued to shout against all the people. And when he did this thing, mighty God caused the terror of Judah and his brethren to fall upon the valiant men and all the people that surrounded them. And they all fled at the sound of the shouting, and they were terrified and fell upon the other, and many of them died as they fell. And they all fled from before Judah and his brethren, and from before Joseph. And whilst they were fleeing, Judah and his brethren pursued them unto the house of Pharaoh, and they all escaped. And Judah again sat before Joseph and roared at him like a lion, and gave a great and tremendous shriek at him. And the shriek was heard at a distance, and all the inhabitants of Succoth heard it, and all Egypt quaked at the sound of the shriek. And also the walls of Egypt and of the land of Goshen fell in from the shaking of the earth. And Pharaoh also fell from his throne upon the ground, and also all the pregnant women of Egypt and Goshen miscarried when they heard the noise of the shaking, from they were terribly afraid. Wow. The Lion of Judah. Wow. Okay, verse 48. And Pharaoh sent word, saying, What is this thing that has this day happened in the land of Egypt? And they came and told him all the things from beginning to end. And Pharaoh was alarmed, and he wondered, and was greatly afraid. And his fright increased when he heard all these things. And he sent unto Joseph, saying, Thou hast brought unto me the Hebrews to destroy all Egypt. What wilt thou do with that thievish slave? Send him away, and let him go with his brethren, and let us not perish through their evil, even we, you, and all Egypt. And if thou desirest not to do this thing, cast off from thee all my valuable things, and go with them to their land, if thou delightest in it. For they will this day destroy my whole country, and slay all my people. Even all the women of Egypt have miscarried through the screams. See what they have done merely by their shouting and speaking. Moreover, if they fight with the sword, they will destroy the land. Now therefore choose that which thou desirest, whether me or the Hebrews, whether Egypt or the land of the Hebrews. And they came and told Joseph all the words of Pharaoh that he had said concerning him. And Joseph was greatly afraid at the words of Pharaoh. And Judah and his brethren were still standing before Joseph, indignant and enraged. And all the sons of Jacob roared at Joseph like the roaring of the sea and its waves. And Joseph was greatly afraid of his brethren on account of Pharaoh. And Joseph sought a pretext to make himself known unto his brethren, lest they should destroy all of Egypt. And Joseph commanded his son Manasseh, and Manasseh went and approached Judah, and placed his hand upon his shoulder, and the anger of Judah was stilled. And Judah said unto his brethren, Let no one of you say that this is the act of an Egyptian, for this is the work of my father's house. And Joseph, seeing and knowing that Judah's anger was stilled, he approached to speak unto Judah in the language of mildness. And Joseph said unto Judah, surely you speak truth, and have this day verified your assertions concerning your strength, and may mighty God Ahiah, who delighted in you, increase your welfare. But tell me truly, why from amongst all thy brethren dost thou wrangle with me on account of the lad? And none of them have spoken one word to me concerning him. And Judah answered Joseph, saying, surely thou must know that I was security for the lad to his father, saying, if I brought him not unto him, I should bear his blame forever. Therefore have I approached thee from among all my brethren, for I saw that thou was unwilling to suffer him to go from thee. Now therefore may I find grace in thy sight, that thou shalt send him to go with us. And behold, I will remain as a substitute for him, to serve thee in whatever thou desirest. For whatsoever thou shalt send me, I will go to serve thee with great energy. Send me now to a mighty king who has rebelled against thee, and thou shalt know what I will do unto him and unto this land, his land. Although he may have cavalry and infantry, or an exceeding mighty people, I will slay them all and bring the king's head before thee. Dost thou not know, or hast thou not heard, that our father Abraham with his servant Eliezer smote all the kings of Elam with their hosts in one night? They left none, not one remaining. And ever since that day our father's strength was given unto us for an inheritance for us and our seed forever. And Joseph answered and said, you speak truth, and falsehood is not in your mouth. For it was also told unto us that the Hebrews have power, and that mighty God Ahiah, their God, their Elohim, delighted much in them, and who then can stand before them? However, on this condition will I send your brother, if you will bring before me his brother, the son of his mother, of whom you said that he had gone from you down to Egypt. And it shall come to pass, when you bring unto me his brother, I will take him in his stead, because not one of you was security for him to your father. And when he shall come unto me, I will then send with you his brother, for whom you have been security. And Judah's anger was kindled against Joseph when he spoke this thing, and his eyes dropped blood with anger. And he said unto his brethren, how doth this man this day seek his own destruction, and that of all Egypt? And Simeon answered Joseph, saying, did we not tell thee at first that we knew not the particular spot to which he went, and whether he be dead or alive? And wherefore speaking my Lord like unto these things? And Joseph, observing the countenance of Judah, discerned that his anger began to kindle when he spoke unto him, saying, bring unto me your brother, your other brother, instead of this brother. And Joseph said unto his brethren, surely you said that your brother was either dead or lost. Now if I should call him this day, and he should come before you, would you give him unto me instead of his brother? And Joseph began to speak and call out, Joseph, Joseph, come this day before me, and appear to thy brethren, and sit before them. And when Joseph spoke this thing before them, they looked each a different way to see from whence Joseph would come before them. And Joseph observed all their acts, and said unto them, why do you look here and there? I am Joseph, whom you sold to Egypt. Now therefore let it not grieve you that you sold me, for as a support during the famine did mighty God Ahiah send me before you. And his brethren were terrified at him when they heard the words of Joseph, and Judah was exceedingly terrified at him. And when Benjamin heard the words of Joseph, he was before them in the inner part of the house. And Benjamin ran unto Joseph his brother, and embraced him, and fell upon his neck, and they wept. And when Joseph's brethren saw that Benjamin had fallen upon his brother's neck, and wept with him, they also fell upon Joseph, and embraced him, and they wept a great weeping with Joseph. And the voice was heard in the house of Joseph that they were Joseph's brethren, and it pleased Pharaoh exceedingly, for he was afraid of them, lest they should destroy Egypt. And Pharaoh sent his servants unto Joseph to congratulate him concerning his brethren who had come to him, and all the captains of the armies and troops that were in Egypt came to rejoice with Joseph, and all Egypt rejoiced greatly about Joseph's brethren. And Pharaoh sent his servants to Joseph, saying, Tell thy brethren to fetch all belonging to them, and let them come unto me, and I will place them in the best part of the land of Egypt. And they did so. And Joseph commanded him that was set over his house to bring out to his brethren gifts and garments, and he brought out to them many garments, being robes of royalty, and many gifts, and Joseph divided them amongst his brethren. And he gave unto each of his brethren a change of garment of gold and silver, and 300 pieces of silver. And Joseph commanded them all to be dressed in these garments, and to be brought before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, seeing that all Joseph's brethren were valiant men and of beautiful appearance, he greatly rejoiced. And they afterward went out from the presence of Pharaoh to go to the land of Canaan to their father, and their brother Benjamin was with them. And Joseph rose up and gave unto them 11 chariots from Pharaoh, and Joseph gave unto them his chariot, upon which he rode on the day of his being crowned in Egypt, to fetch his father to Egypt. And Joseph sent to all his brothers' children garments according to their number, and 100 pieces of silver to each of them. And he also sent garments to the wives of his brethren from the garments of the king's wives, and he sent them. And he gave unto each of his brethren 10 men to go with them to the land of Canaan, to serve them, to serve their children, and all belonging to them in coming to Egypt. And Joseph sent by the hand of his brother Benjamin 10 suits of garment for his 10 sons, a portion above the rest of the children of the sons of Jacob. And he sent to each 50 pieces of silver and 10 chariots on the account of Pharaoh. And he sent to his father 10 asses laden with all the luxuries of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and nourishment for his father, and to all that were with him as provisions for the road. And he sent to his sister Dinah garments of silver and gold, and frankincense and myrrh, and aloes and women's ornament in great plenty. And he sent the same from the wives of Pharaoh to the wives of Benjamin. And he gave unto all his brethren also to their wives all sorts of onyx stones and bdellium, and from all the valuable things amongst the great people of Egypt. Nothing of all the costly things was left, but was Joseph sent of to his father's household. And he sent his brethren away, and they went, and he sent his brother Benjamin with them. And Joseph went out with them to accompany them on the road unto the borders of Egypt. And he commanded them concerning his father and his household to come to Egypt. And he said unto them, Do not quarrel on the road, for this thing was from mighty God Ahiah, to keep a great people from starvation, for there will be yet 5 years of famine in the land. And he commanded them, saying, When you come into the land of Canaan, do not come suddenly before my father in this affair, but act in your wisdom. And Joseph ceased to command them, and he turned and went back to Egypt. And the sons of Jacob went to the land of Canaan with joy and cheerfulness to their father Jacob. And they came into the borders of the land, and they said to each other, What shall we do in this matter before our father? For if we come suddenly to him and tell him the matter, he will be greatly alarmed at our words, and will not believe us. And they went along until they came nigh unto their houses, and they found Sarah, the daughter of Asher, going forth to meet them. And the damsel was very good and subtle, and knew how to play upon the harp. And they called unto her, and she came before them, and she kissed them. And they took her and gave unto her a harp, saying, Go now before our father, and sit before him, and strike upon the harp, and speak these words. And they commanded her to go to their house, and she took the harp and hastened before them, and she came and sat near Jacob. And she played well, and sang, and uttered in the sweetness of her words, Joseph my uncle is living, and he ruled throughout the land of Egypt, and is not dead. And she continued to repeat and utter these words, and Jacob heard her words, and they were agreeable to him. He listened while she repeated them twice and thrice, and joy entered the heart of Jacob at the sweetness of her words, and the spirit of mighty God Ahijah was upon him, and he knew all her words to be true. And Jacob blessed Sarai when she spoke these words before him, and he said unto her, My daughter, may death never prevail over thee, for thou hast revived my spirit. Only speak yet before me as thou hast spoken, for thou hast gladdened me with all thy words. And she continued to sing these words, and Jacob listened, and it pleased him, and he rejoiced, and the spirit of mighty God Ahijah was upon him. Whilst he was yet speaking with her, behold, his sons came to him with horses and chariots and royal garments and servants running before them. And Jacob rose up to meet them and saw his sons dressed in royal garments, and he saw all treasures that Joseph had sent them. And they said unto him, Be informed that our brother Joseph is living, and it is he who ruleth throughout the land of Egypt, and it is he who spoke unto us as we told thee. And Jacob heard all the words of his sons, and his heart palpitated at their words, for he could not believe them until he saw all that Joseph had given them, and what he had sent him, and all the signs which Joseph had spoken unto them. And they opened out before him, and showed him all that Joseph had sent. They gave unto each what Joseph had sent him, and he knew that they had spoken the truth. And he rejoiced exceedingly on account of his son. And Jacob said, It is enough for me that my son Joseph is still living. I will go and see him before I die. And his sons told him all that had befallen them. And Jacob said, I will go down to Egypt to see my son and his offspring. And Jacob rose up and put on the garments which Joseph had sent him, and after he had washed and shaved his hair, he put upon his head the turban which Joseph had sent him. And all the people of Jacob's house and their wives put on the garments which Joseph had sent them, and they greatly rejoiced at Joseph, that he was still living, and that he was ruling in Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Canaan heard of this thing, and they came and rejoiced much with Jacob, that he was still living. And Jacob made a feast for them for 3 days, and all the kings of Canaan and nobles of the land ate and drank and rejoiced in the house of Jacob. And we're going to stop at that, and we will continue tomorrow. Thank you for listening.